this is either kind of going to go one of three ways, in my opinion. It's just going to stay a hobby that you and I just do for fun. We just come on as often as we come on and do what we do. Or we stop and, after 100 episodes, we call it and it's been a good run. Or at 100 episodes, if we're not just going to keep it a hobby, that we actively try to grow it. What is up, everybody? And welcome back to the Schooling Struggle Podcast. It is our belief that the only guarantee in life is that we are all going to struggle, and how we choose to embrace our struggles is what empowers us to become the best versions of ourselves. How is it going? My name is Pete, coming to you from Heartland, Vermont, and with me is my friend and co-host, Todd Ellis, coming to you from Tacoma, Washington. What's up, Todd?
What's happening, Peter?
Good news for you.
You got good news for me?
The feedback from the last episode is that your microphone is fixed.
Oh, well. Thank God for technology.
The audio came through swell. So whatever you did, you did it well. Nice job.
All right. Thanks. Not sure what actually fixed it, but sure. Now today my Outlook doesn't work. It turns on and it says it's corrupted. So that's
your what doesn't work?
Outlook is a Microsoft 365 email app.
Outlook. I thought you said outlet.
No.
Looks like you got electricity to me.
Yeah. As far as I know, all the electricity is working.
That's good.
Yeah.
So over those last couple of weeks, when your microphone wasn't at its best, a cool thing happened, at least in my opinion, and that was that we crossed the 10,000 download threshold as a podcast.
Congratulations, 10K.
Yay, congratulations to you.
Nice.
The goal of this has never been analytics or growth or numbers. I'm starting to see this kind of, Todd, as our community service to the world. Like you and I are trying to make the world a better place, and we're offering this for free. Like this doesn't cost the listeners a nickel. At least it doesn't. They have to pay for their phones and stuff, but we don't make any money off this.
Yeah,
this is
definitely.
This is one way that we serve our community listeners. I think it's pretty neat that we've hit the 10,000 download mark. It's funny. I think some podcasts out there probably hit 10,000 downloads in the first hour when they release an episode.
Yeah, well,
but what I've come to learn is that our listenership, or our family or community listeners, is a really dedicated bunch, which I think is really neat. And our very first guest that we had on back in the day, his name was Keith Smith. He was my friend who worked for Disney World and then became an NBA reporter, worked for the National Basketball Association and still does. And he's really grown his career leaps and bounds.
Awesome.
As a content creator for professional basketball. What he shared with me recently was that pretty early on in his journey, it was really special for him to have this small group of dedicated followers. And as he grew, the depth of those followers seemed to kind of dissipate a little bit. And it was more like he's reaching more people at a shallower
depth.
What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, shallower depth, right? So it's like, he didn't say this, but I always think it's like, do I want to hit 1,000 people knee deep, or do I want to hit a dozen people shoulder deep? So the impact that we're having, and the analytics show that we have a very dedicated group of people that tune into our show on a regular basis. And I'm super psyched about that.
Yeah. Well,
with that said, if for some reason you stumbled upon this show and this is your very first episode with us, this might actually not be the best episode to start with, because this one's going to be a little bit different than past episodes. So I'd highly recommend kind of scrolling back and finding an episode.
Start at the beginning. Just start at the beginning and listen to them all.
I'm always hesitant to tell people to start at the beginning because I think our chemistry was off, and definitely my editing was off. One that I love that we did, episode 51, with my daughter's teacher, Heather Pogue. And oftentimes people say, oh, what's a good episode for me to start with? And I'll often start them out with that one. Episode 51 is called What Keeps Me Grounded. So that is kind of more what our podcast is about than this particular episode. But in celebration of our 10,000 downloads, Todd, I prepared a list of questions that listeners have asked me over the years that I've answered to them personally, but we've never discussed it on the podcast. And it's one of those age-old mantras. If one person has a question, it's likely that maybe somebody else could be interested as well. So we're going to go over some questions that listeners have asked about the logistics of the podcast to start, and then we'll get into some other stuff. Why this resonated with me was because a number of years ago, before our daughter was born, Jen and I went on a cruise. And while on the cruise, I just became so fascinated with the logistics of what it takes to put 4,000 people on a boat for a week, to take the boat out, to have everything go well, then to come back and completely reset the entire ship in like 6 hours and then do it again. Like the logistics, the organization, all that stuff that goes into it behind the scenes that nobody sees, to me is really, really, really interesting. Fascinated by that. And I know that some people that listen to the show are just curious about some of the logistics that go on behind the scenes when we are not talking over the mic.
Sure.
So I've created a list of questions that people have asked. Todd and I are going to go through them and we're going to answer them. And then after that, I have a question for Todd that I've been very curious about ever since I met him. And I've asked him to think about something that he's been curious about that he has never asked me on the mic.
I can't even wait.
That he does that he doesn't know the answer to. So I'm going to pull up our list of questions, and Todd's going to ask some, I'm going to ask some, and then we're going to go from there.
Choose it.
So first question, Todd, you are up.
Oh, okay. We'll start at the top. How many labor hours go into creating an episode of the Schooling Struggle podcast?
So I think the answer is probably different for the two of us. For me, it all depends on the guest. So I'd say if there is a guest, it's probably about an hour of me correspondence going back and forth and setting up the questions and lining everything up for the date, the time, the questions that are going into it. So if it's not just Todd and I, there's an extra, I'd say, hour that goes into it. When it is just Todd and I, we record for an hour. We normally chat on the mic for 5 minutes before we hit record. We hit record, we record for about 45 minutes, and then we talk for a couple minutes after. So when we actually record, that's about an hour. And then depending on the edit for me takes anywhere between 2 to 3 hours, and I'm just cutting out stuff that I don't think is of high value or stuff that slows the flow of the conversation down. We record the podcast on a platform called Zencastr. Then Zencastr converts it to an audio file. It's called a WAV file. I drag and drop the WAV file into GarageBand on my MacBook. I edit that. That takes about 3 hours. And then to produce it, to put it up on the internet with an RSS feed, to type in show notes, all that stuff for me takes about another half hour, sometimes an hour. So all said and done, if it's just Todd and I, it's around 4 hours a week that I commit to the podcast. If it's more, it's probably because I'm setting up stuff with a guest and preparing with a guest. So that's another hour. And then eventually we're going to be bringing on people that we don't know. That's the long-term goal. And I think that's going to be even more set up. So for me, 4 to 6 hours a week, depending.
All right. Well,
What about you?
Thank you for your service. I come reboot my computer. That takes about 35 seconds. Make sure my microphone works. Make sure my headphones are charged. I mean, I'm pretty low investment at this point. When I used to do the show notes early on, I did the show notes, and it would probably take about an hour. I'd find links and cross link and all kinds of different stuff, read the transcript, but Peter took that over, so I kind of dropped the ball. Peter took it back, so what happened.
No, that was just my lack of patience. I'll be like, I'll get to it. Like, I really want this episode to come out before the next one comes out. And he's like, well, I'll get to the show notes. I'm like, you know what? Those show notes are the most in-depth show. So to people listening out there, go back to like the first 30 episodes, and you can see the show notes is like the length of like the Bible. Now
biblical notes.
Now they're just like 3. Yeah, he was very, very, very thorough with the show notes, where I just write a couple sentences.
I have a hard time condensing. I've always had a hard time condensing. Like, what's the main? I don't even know what they call it. The main topic of this story. I've had a hard time with that my entire life. So I just find all the things that I would want to click on, and that's what I used to do.
So anyways. I felt bad. I'd be bugging him like, hey, you got the show notes done? And he'd be like, no, but tomorrow. I don't know. I really want to get this thing out tonight. So
you're not the only one that gets that from Todd.
My lack of patience and my desire for utter control just took that over.
Good to know. All right, you're up. Your
okay,
question.
Number 2. What do you look forward to the most regarding the podcast?
The most. What do I look forward to the most? I think the most is just sharing all the things I've learned through the week or through the weeks that we do it, that lead up to it. I like the podcast because I can be more of myself in this podcast than I typically am with the people who are in my proximity. So if they have a question and we cover it in the podcast, I should go listen to the podcast. So there's that. Yeah, I'm just spending time with you. I like to hear what goes on in your life and how things are going over there. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
For me, it's the actual hour that we are recording is the most enjoyable time for me. I don't mind the editing process. I don't like anything social media, which is part of the reason why we haven't tried to grow this thing, because it takes a bunch of effort on the social media end that I'm just not interested in doing. And our goal early on was just to keep it fun and to keep our expectations low. So I love the 1 hour conversation. And then I would say, I don't know if this is my ego or selfish, but
aren't they the
when
same?
I get affirmation that what we're doing, that the mission of the podcast is landing. So when people reach out to me and share, hey, I listened to this episode, this was my takeaway. Or people see me in the hall at school and they walk up to me, and students or colleagues, and be like, hey, I listened to last night's episode. I thought this part was really cool. So when I get like specific feedback, it really, really fills me up. Because I think oftentimes listeners forget that, especially like my friends and family, like they get to hear my voice every week, but I don't get to hear their voice every week. So when they reach out to me with a phone call or a text or an email or in person and say, hey, this is how the podcast positively impacted me. Like the mission of this podcast is to positively impact the lives of others. And when I get affirmation and confirmation that that's happening, oh, baby, that is just a fuel that keeps me going. Because oftentimes 8 o'clock at night, midweek for me, it takes a lot of mental energy for me to get down here and get going. And that's the fuel that just kind of keeps me going.
Wow. So, that's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I like it when you share with me. I often wonder, like, what are the, like, do you solicit the feedback or does it just come to you typically?
It just comes to me.
Yeah.
I probably share with you, Todd, 5% of the feedback that I get.
Holy. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I need to hook up on the feedback train because I only get it once in a while, but but I do love it. I think that kind of validation is kind of like
so cool.
And
the feedback is like it's not through like official forums or polls or anything like that, but it's just people saying, "Hey, this is like the other day I locked my keys out of my car and locked my keys in my car, locked myself out of my car, and I started getting pissed off. And I realized, that the guys talk about like focus on what you can control. So I decided I'm not going to be pissed off even though my keys are locked in my car. Like little anecdotes like that, like really, really fire me.
Wow. Yeah, we should think of something to capture that so that I could get in on those too. Well, here we are, episode 97. So if anybody that knows me is listening, go ahead and shoot me some positive feedback.
Make his day.
Yeah.
Conversely, next question, what do you look forward to the least? What is the most challenging piece of the podcast?
Well, other than I don't get any positive feedback, I don't think I have a least. Sometimes if I have a lot of things going on, like pretty much I go to work, I come home from work, and then it's jump into the podcast seat, give or take 15 minutes. And sometimes like other grandkids will be here, or Jocelyn's got something going on and she forgets because it used to be magical microphone Mondays and now it's thoughtful Thursdays. I don't know. So it's like all these different days. And so sometimes it's like, oh man, I'm like not in the headspace for that thing. And usually we take care of it, but it's like, I don't like that. If you go back and listen to the early shows, I felt the same kind of juice, and I still do. I felt the same juice, but it was like under a routine that was like, I'm going to get the like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to get the cracker. I'm going to get the cracker. And now it's like, I don't know. It's like, will I get the cracker? Am I ready for the cracker? Is the cracker going to be tasty? So I think that's the thing that I look forward to least, if that's saying it correctly. So yeah, but I don't know. I mean, it's all on my shoulder. Like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to solve that problem, but yeah.
Yeah.
How about you? What's your least?
For me, I would say the thing I enjoy the least about it is just the undue stress I put on myself for deadlines. So there's no deadline for
Todd doesn't have that problem,
right? So I'm just like, I really want to have this thing edited by the end of the weekend.
Yeah.
And the weekend will come, and I'll have all these plans. Like, where am I going to squeeze in 3 hours to edit this thing? And I prefer to sit down and edit it in one chunk.
Yeah.
It's like it's not like for the creative side. And that's one thing I love about it is this gives me a chance to be creative. Like I edit stuff out and try to stitch it together so that nobody would ever notice.
You're getting better.
There's stuff that I've edited out and no one will ever know.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. Just to see if I can pull that off. So I get to tap into my creative side. So that's one of my favorite things about it. But yeah, finding a big chunk of time to edit each week, I definitely put stress on myself for that. And then I put a lot of stress on myself for how are we going to make the next show worthy? Like how are we going to make the next show worth listening to? And doing that 97 times in a row is challenging. It certainly is. I have a little bit more to share about this. It's going to be addressed in a little further down the line in our questioning here. But I would say what stresses me out the most is the pressure I put on myself to produce the quality, the quantity, and in the timeline that I kind of set for myself. Because I feel like if I don't set a deadline, I'll just keep pushing it back, and then
welcome to my world.
3 weeks and one hasn't come out. So yeah.
Well,
it's one of these things where it's just like in the moment, it's a lot of work, but when I look back, it's worth doing.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's go next. Does the podcast monetize? Will it ever?
We talked about this in the very beginning of this episode. The podcast does not monetize. We do nothing to garner any type of capitalization or money with this. Will it ever? I don't know the answer to that right now. As of right now, it doesn't. I think if you start to monetize, some things come along with that might take away from the fun and kind of the freedom of it.
Yeah.
But at some point, giving up 4 hours a week, 5 hours a week, 6 hours a week, when it starts to take away from my family, like something's going to have to give back to that. So if I'm going to continue to do this indefinitely, because I can make $65 to $100 an hour doing personal training for people, and at 6 hours a week, that's quite a chunk. And I could take that money and spend it on travel with my family or something. So as of right now, I look at this as kind of like my community service. I don't know how long that's going to sustain.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice for it to monetize, but that's not the goal.
Interesting.
And
yeah,
I remember very early on, I asked you if you thought you might want to join me on this before we even started. Like you asked me, you're like, do you want to monetize? I'm like, no. And you're like, good. I don't either.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's definitely something that takes away. I have a friend named Tom who has all these podcasts and all these weird things. And I remember the first time I heard him do an ad, I'm sure he gets paid for ads, and I thought, man, that's so cheesy. I remember thinking that, like, I could imagine him sitting there saying the things into the microphone and thinking, I'm going to get paid for this, but feels weird. So I don't know, but yeah. Well, that goes the next question then. So what's the future plan, if there's any, after we hit, what are we at, 97? So 3 more is 100.
Yeah.
Where's your future lie?
So that is an area where I've been putting a ton of stress on myself. I spend a lot of mental energy thinking about this.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk about like what's the biggest challenge or what do I enjoy the least, it's trying to think about what this might be. I'm a person that likes to kind of have objective measures and goals. So this is either kind of going to go one of 3 ways, in my opinion. It's just going to stay a hobby that you and I just do for fun. And we just kind of come on as often as we come on and do what we do, or we stop and after 100 episodes, we call it and it's been a good run. Or if we're not just going to keep it a hobby, that we actively try to grow it. And in order for it to grow, it's going to require way more hours doing things that I have zero interest in doing. And that's all social media related stuff. I don't want to spend time on social media platforms promoting it. I don't want to spend time on social media DMing potential guests that I think would be amazing. I just don't want to squeeze that in my life. So honestly, what I would love in a perfect world is for someone out there in the ether to hear this and say, oh, I'm looking to build a resume as the social media director of a podcast, and I'm happy to spend 30 minutes a day reaching out to potential guests and posting stuff and following other podcasts of similar values and these types of things. So basically, we need an intern.
Yes, taking applications.
That's what we need.
Schoolingstruggle@gmail.com.
But I actually think it would be really cool for someone either in high school or college to be like, hey, I joined this podcast team. They had 10,000 listens and we double or tripled the listenership in a year.
Come on down.
This is on my resume.
Yeah, that'd be
cool. My brother makes a living on digital marketing. So he really knows his stuff and he's talked to me about it. So I have all the guidance I think that I need. I just need someone with the time, and it can't be me.
If somebody interned, do you have a huge, like a checklist of expectations about you?
I have a checklist of duties or tasks, but I don't have an expectation of where those duties or tasks, what that will yield.
Ooh, that's a hard one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, shoot us some out.
I think that's what it's going to take. And the very goal-oriented, driven side of me would love to see it grow. But up till now, like, the goal has not been to grow. The goal has just been to get better.
Yeah, so we're just getting the dirt ready for the seeds.
But 100 episodes, very, very early on when I was listening to podcasts, I heard someone say, don't ask me to come on your podcast unless you're at least 100 episodes deep. Because if you're not 100 episodes deep, you're not a legit podcast. And I won't be a guest on someone's podcast. That's not legit.
Really?
So I was like, all right, I need to have 100 episodes before I can start like going outside of my personal circle to ask people. There are so many people out there that would have amazing things to share. And I also think once they find out, like, I'm a teacher and this is a nonprofit, like, they'd be willing to give their time an hour to talk. But yeah, so I want to get 100 episodes in.
Sounds like you got some plans.
I know.
That's good.
It kills me.
Yeah, you'll be all right.
So,
All right.
Yeah, the future plan for the podcast is one of three. It'll either stop, it will continue just a loose hobby for Todd and I, or we're going to make an effort to grow it.
It's fair. It's fair. Where do you want to go next?
What's the next question? Oh, that's you.
Yep. All right. Technically speaking, how is an episode of the podcast created?
So
I've already went into it.
Yeah, I covered that, but Todd and I pay a couple $100 a year to have this platform called Zencastr. I log into Zencastr, I create an episode, I send the link to Todd, I email it to his inbox. He clicks on the link, he comes on. It does a mic check to make sure the sound is good. We talk. It's in video, so we can see each other while we're talking, but it only records in audio. There is an option to record in video, but I've chosen not to do that because editing audio is so much more fun than editing video.
Yeah.
And when we have a guest on, I'll email them the link. They sign in, and all three of us can see each other. And then we just have the conversation. I hit record. We record it. I hit stop record at the end of the conversation. And then I go into the back end of it in the dashboard. I hit produce. We pay extra for some bells and whistles. It'll take out long pauses. It'll take out filler words. The software will do some stuff that saves me a ton of time on the editing end. Once that's all set, then I drop it into GarageBand, do everything that I talked about a little bit earlier on. And then we post it through what was once Anchor has been bought out by Spotify. So Spotify now is the platform that we launch it through in an RSS feed. I don't know what RSS stands for. Do you, Todd?
I do, but I don't remember what it is.
So it's basically the way that the podcast goes out to the world. And currently we're on Google, Apple, Spotify. Those are our big listeners. I think Google's about to switch their stuff around, but 99.9% of our listeners get it through Spotify and Apple. And the cover art was created by my daughter's godmother, Kristen Coates. She created the School & Struggle cover art, the orange mountain scene that you see. She's an incredible artist that lives here in the Upper Valley. And if God forbid something ever were to happen to Jenner I, that LJ would be moving in with Auntie Kristen. So Kristen, big love for the cover art. Thank you so much.
Nice work. That's really simple syndication, RSS.
Okay,
right.
Cool.
Even a podcast host could do it. Just saying.
And then if there's any issues, I email Todd and I say, yo, I don't know what's going on with this. And he goes in the back end and he normally figures it out.
Yeah.
Which hasn't happened
sometimes.
Across our fingers. Hasn't happened in a little while.
You're getting, last time you told me to fix my microphone. So there's that.
Actually, this was not in our list of questions, but I actually had a former student reach out just yesterday. Said, hey, Mr. D, I see that you promote your podcast on your private Facebook page. Did you ever think about making your personal Facebook page public so more people can access it, or creating a Facebook page of its own for the School & Struggle podcast? And the answer was basically what I just shared. No, my Facebook page is going to stay private. It automatically, through Spotify, uploads the, what's it called on Facebook? The post on the wall. And that happens automatically. So I actually don't go on Facebook rarely ever. It's just not a platform that I ever use. But when I set this whole thing up, it said, hey, do you want to share it on Facebook every time an episode is released? And I said, sure. So that's why it's released on my personal page, but it's purposely not a public page, and doesn't have its own Facebook page yet until our intern sets.
I thought I made one, but I just looked and it's not there. I mean, I know I made a Instagram page. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the Instagram page, I actually converted from my personal one from.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Before, yeah. So there is an Instagram, School & Struggle podcast on Instagram.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's there.
All right.
Cool.
It's your turn.
Todd.
Yeah.
How does your current experience with the podcast compare to your expectations when embarking on the project?
I didn't have any expectations about the project. It was more of a forcing function to get you off your lazy duff because I knew you wanted to do it.
I owe you for that.
Yeah, I mean, you've come a long, long way. I know we touch on this a lot, but I'm pretty sure I shared with you maybe a couple months ago that I hadn't listened to the actual published show in a long time. And I listened to one, and sitting on this side of the microphone, I know the conversation that goes on with guests or with just you and I. And when I'm listening to it, it's so condensed and so well stitched together, like you noted earlier, that I'm like, did I imagine that part happen, or did that actually happen? I don't have a way to go back and actually look. So a few times I'm like, no, I know we definitely had a side conversation about that, and it's just completely missing. And so yeah, I think you've embraced well stepping out of your comfort zone, and I think that's kind of why you brought me on board. Maybe not, but as far as expectations for the show go, I didn't have any, and I think we've done all right. It's still fun, so
It is fun. It's a lot of fun for me. The listeners probably don't know this, but every now and again we'll be in the middle of a conversation. Todd will just say, "I gotta go take a break," and he'll just walk away, and so I have to edit that kind of stuff out.
Yeah.
Or sometimes my daughter's running around upstairs and pounding on the floor. I'm like, "Yo, settle down."
I never hear.
Somebody asked how many different clips are stitched together for an episode, and generally somewhere in the arena of 60 to 120. So 60 to 120 little edits that I've made or changes that I've made. We've had some guests who I've had to edit quite a bit out. There was one guest in particular that it literally took me 7 hours to get our conversation down to 45 minutes. I did an hour a night for a week on that one. But that's not normal. And normally the stuff I edit out, honestly, is my voice because I just talk too much. So I would say 90% of what I edit out is me talking or some like slip up or some weird thing that we don't need the listeners to hear.
Good to know.
Is much harder to gain new listeners than I would have expected. We haven't marketed it or tried to grow it, but I just thought like organically that might happen. And the numbers really haven't grown all that much. But when you think about like somebody gives up 40 minutes of their whatever they're doing to listen to your voice per week, like that's a big ask. And so many times in my life, I've listened to a podcast for like 6 months or a year and then just totally dropped it and switched to a different one. Like I'm constantly rotating through. So the fact that so many people have just stayed with us for 2.5 years is really kind of blows my mind. Because I think in this day and age to get someone's attention for 45 minutes, and I know that when people listen, they're doing other things, they're driving or working out or working in the yard or whatever.
Yeah,
not listening, sleeping.
Yeah, right.
But just the fact that they are willing to like tune in is really, really cool.
Yeah. They actually have sleep podcasts. Did you know that?
Oh yeah, I listen to
people talking about like the most off the cuff, boring things you could even imagine. It's bizarre. I wonder if somebody says, "Oh, I put this one on." These two clowns just talk me right to sleep. That'd be great. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, as far as my expectations, really just to have fun and have no expectations. But I do want to put out a quality product. Like it's important to me.
Yeah.
My name's attached to this. I want the audio to be good. I want the content to be worth listening to, and that somebody can walk away from every episode saying, I took that away, and I may or may not apply that to my life, but it was worth listening to.
Yeah. Have you ever scrapped? Go ahead.
We scrapped an episode. Yes. Yeah. Not every episode has made the cut.
Yeah.
But most of them have.
Yeah. Good to know. Well, the next one's about the same. So
yeah. Has your goal or mission for the podcast changed since embarking?
Yeah. How about you?
So when we first started, it was like, how do we just get it out there? And now it's like, how do we make it better?
Yeah.
It's that we always talk about like, if you wait till you're ready, you're never going to start. So I was like, we just have to start this thing. And these first couple, and I thought about like removing some of the episodes that I really don't like, but it's like, no, like that's part of our journey. That's part of our story. I purposely numbered them that way so I can't go back and do that. Right. It's like, I was taking out, say, episode 33. Like I can't do that. So the mission is to share with people the cool stuff that I'm learning. And that's the exact same mission that when I go into school every day.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. How can I positively have a positive impact on somebody? And I feel that from the feedback I'm getting and look at the analytics of it, I think that is being achieved. If I do flip the switch to trying to grow or maybe monetize in the future, that will be a very different mission, but that's not the mission now. The mission is just to get better at editing, at interviewing, at conversation, at flow, at chemistry, all that stuff.
Perfection. Well, at least progress. Have you had any guests that have been unhappy with their edit of their episode?
No. I've had some people question when the episode came out. They said, hey, how come you did this? How come you did that? And then they were quick to say, I respect your creative license to edit the way that you want to edit. It is your show. So nobody's been like fired up or upset with me. That was something I was worried about.
Yeah.
That's also part of the reason why I wanted these first 100 episodes to be people we know, so that if maybe at some point we interview someone who's really well known and has achieved something great, and we have a podcast and they're really pissed off with how I edit, at least I have the confidence to say, well, this isn't my first time doing this. Like I'm comfortable editing how I edit. I don't want to sound insensitive, but I was watching a documentary about making documentaries, and they were saying the hardest part is deciding what you're going to keep and what you're going to get rid of. And they call it killing babies. Like you have this shot or this clip that you think is absolutely worthy of making the final product, and you have to decide to cut it out. Like it's just so difficult because it's your baby, because you filmed it or you
Yeah.
recorded it and you put time and effort into it, and cutting stuff out is really, really hard.
I've heard people say that about editing book editors too. They're just
Right.
ruthless.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
take those 9 chapters out. We don't want to listen to that. Like,
Yeah.
what?
But no, the guests that we've had so far have been awesome, and they've said to me like they're really psyched with how the episode came out.
Yeah, I feel like all of our guests have been stellar, so that's great. How big is your family of listeners? I think we already went over that.
Yeah, we refer to the family of listeners quite often, and from what I can see, I think there's about 75 to 100 like diehard like listeners that listen to the new show when it comes out, like within the first week or so. And then there's people that are kind of working their way through it. When I refer to our family listeners, in my mind, those are people who are on a search to be a better version of themselves and who are embracing the struggle and are finding ways to navigate it in a way that makes them a better version of themselves. And I think based on the analytics, I think there's about 75 to 100 of us out there that fit within the mold of what I say our family listeners. And I am just like to the moon grateful for those people. It's so cool.
You only need just one.
Just one.
Yeah.
Just one. Yeah. So yeah, it's special.
Cool. Well, I think that wraps up our questions.
Awesome.
Unless you got some more. I'm dying to know this killer question you've got for me.
So you want me to go first? So
yeah,
the second part of the conversation is going to be shorter than the first part. Yeah, something I've always wondered about Todd, and since we started talking, and I asked him to come up with something for me, and you're so great. Our text exchange today. I'm trying to find it here. So I said to Todd, your homework. After recording 97 episodes with me now, what are you curious about regarding me, Pete Driscoll? I am asking you, Todd, to ask me anything on the show tonight. And your response was, only in the corporate world do ask me anything questions get rehearsed. So no, we did not rehearse this. He doesn't know what I'm going to ask him.
No idea.
I have no idea what he's going to ask me. You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Todd, here's my question for you.
Great.
You have shared many of your struggles from the past. High school, having a kid young, ruining yourself financially at a young age. Can you pinpoint a time when you were at your, quote, lowest, and how did you navigate that? Did you ever throw your hands in the air and want to quit, or did you always believe in yourself that you would overcome and be where you want to be?
No, I wouldn't say I'd ever wanted to quit. When I was 18, I moved to Florida, maybe 17, 18 years old. And I remember vividly writing bouncing checks just because I didn't have any money and I knew I had to eat and all these other things. And I would call the bank number, like 1-800, whatever for the bank, to see how far in debt I was. And as the number surmounted, I was just like, had the sinking feeling of, you've dug a hole so deep that I don't know how we're ever going to get out of this, right? And I remember thinking to myself, there's really only two ways. You have to buckle down, and there's got to be a way out. Somebody's going to throw a rope, like there's somehow the light's going to enter at the top of the tunnel. I don't know what I was going to do. Or you're just going to, either you're going to like just end your life, or you're just going to like toil in this misery, without looking for a way out. I remember thinking that. And when I came home to live with my parents because I didn't have anything else to do, nowhere else to go, no credit, nothing. And basically what they did was they taught me all of the tools at 18 or 19, whenever I came back, that I don't know that they should have, that I would have thought that they should have. I mean, it's a legit term, that they should have been teaching me all along. Well, here's how you budget your money. And I went out and completely screwed everything up. And then I came home, and at least they had the grace to like, yeah, you can live with us. It's going to be really awkward because you left on bad terms, but now we're going to teach you all the things that you're looking for to get you out of this hole. And so I thought that was really cool. And the fact that I was able to accept it because I didn't have any other choice, right? It was like, where are you going to live? I mean, under the overpass, like, what are you going to do? Right. And so through those tools, I was able to, obviously get myself out of that. And then I had a daughter, which just further reinforced the fact that I needed to get my shit together. And then after that, I was pretty much on the way to, the land of milk and honey where I'm at now. Not to say that it's, milk and honey, but yeah. So
I think the majority of our listeners know this, but you had quite a struggle through your high school years.
Yeah.
And you didn't graduate from high school. Nope. So you didn't graduate from high school. And then what prompted the move to Florida? It's like as far away from Washington State as you can be.
So part of the reason I didn't graduate from high school, other than my own ignorance, and the lack of interest in what was being taught was a female. So she moved away, and I went to chase her there because I had no reason to go to school or anything to do here. So I moved with her and her mother down there, and then that's where all hell broke loose. And then a year later, I moved back. But
okay, so you moved back, and your first child was not with the girl who you chased to Florida.
Definitely not. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. There were a couple like holes in the story for me, and I was trying to patch it together.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, so it was sink or swim, but it wasn't to the point where you hear some people talk about actual rock bottom, and maybe for me that was rock bottom. But when I think of like rock bottom of addiction or rock bottom of, like everything is crashing down around me, if I think rock bottom in those terms, which I've never actually felt, I think it's just a smothering feeling of helplessness. Like, what are you supposed to do? There's nobody that can help me. I don't know where to turn, what direction to go. There's no light. I think that's a different rock bottom than the rock bottom that I imposed on myself. But I'm grateful that I had a way out or those mechanisms to look towards. So, yeah.
What's interesting to me is you and I had a connection over CrossFit, and we had what I think are some really cool conversations. And I asked if you joined me on this podcast journey called School and Struggle, but at that time I had no idea your backstory.
Yeah.
I've said this before in past episodes, but the way you speak and the way you think, if you told me that you were top of your class at an Ivy League college, I wouldn't even think for a second that wouldn't be true. And we started kind of picking, getting into our past in the first couple episodes, and you're like, yeah, I never graduated high school. I was like, what, for real? I was like, you have this like high power job at Microsoft. And you're like, yeah, I got to it a different way. It wasn't through formal schooling. I'm like, wow. To know that you lost your job over a year ago, and you're like, yeah, not too worried about the financial thing. Like, I'll figure it out. I was like, wow, you've made some very smart decisions along the way to get you to a point where you could not work for a year and be fine. Like, that's really cool.
Hey, thanks. Yeah. It's like, I've said it before, but I have a very hard time accepting merit for the things that other people think I do that are noteworthy. So thank you for that. But I think one of my strengths in life is that I don't place a lot of onus on, and maybe it's wrong, I don't know, maybe it's viewed negatively by others, but I just don't place a lot of onus on the things that I feel are positive about the things that I've kind of fallen into, if that makes sense. So like, I didn't go to school for computer science. I worked at Microsoft for 20 years. Like, that only happened through a series of events that I was very fortunate to have happen. So it's not like it's something that I did that got me there. It's you know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of hard. I worked hard when I got there, but it's like, I wouldn't have got there without the people and the things around me that help support me. So I think that's probably why I don't look at it in the same light that a lot of people do.
I do hear what you're saying, but I think there is something to be said for your gravitas and your work ethic. Yeah. And I tell my daughter each night when I tuck her in, work hard and treat people well. And I think you do those two things. And I think that has yielded some positive outcomes for you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I try my best. Those are a couple of my principles. So yeah, good question.
All right. Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
What do you got for me?
I got a twofer for you. You ready for this?
I don't think I'm ready.
Okay.
If this chair had a seatbelt, I'd put it on.
And would you? Yeah. Okay. The first one I've been wondering for a long time, just because I know how children are and I know how strict and how tightly strung your ego is. What will happen when the plans that you have for LJ with like her diet and the things you try to impress on her in that way, the things that can be seen as limiting, when that explodes? So when she turns into a teenager, just goes on a sugar binge, and just like, are you prepared for a fallout of that magnitude? And like, have you ever thought about that?
So that's already happening
as we speak.
Fairly regular basis.
Sugar.
Yeah, when Rory and I did our show a couple shows ago, we did a 5x5, and I talk about that in there. We talked about paradigm shifts and how one of my biggest paradigm shifts is parenting.
Oh.
It's funny you mentioned the sugar thing, because that has been kind of a topic. And I have been teaching long enough to know the reality of, like, you're a parent until maybe 6th grade, and after that, you're just a counselor, right? Like, you're
along for the ride.
Kids' friends have more influence on their life than you do as a parent, no matter what you want to think. So I'm prepared for that. How I'll respond, I won't know until I cross that bridge, but I am prepared for the fact that, like, we talk about expectation, for the things that I hope for her. It's not that I expect of her, but it's the things that I hope for her. When those don't come to fruition, how I'll respond. And I think that's what makes a really supportive parent a really supportive parent. So I'm prepared for that. Fortunately for me, I see it every day in my students and what they share with me about their interactions with their families and stuff. And I see the kids that aren't allowed to do A and they're doing A every day in school. They're not supposed to be dating and they're
for
sneaking
sure.
out to lunch with a boyfriend or girlfriend, those types of things. So Jen and I talk about this quite a bit. And the most important thing is that we can be ABC, always be communicating. And I think up till now, even when she like tries to hide something from us, she'll start to feel like she's breaking trust and then she'll come tell us. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I want her to view me as someone who is going to support her, not someone that's going to come down hard on her when she quote unquote messes up. But yeah, with the food thing, that is one of many that we're working through right now, and it's a very real thing. The amount of processed food that she has access to at school on a daily basis, is hard for me, but that's the reality of it. So we're navigating that. Yeah, I don't even know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it does.
I think I'd like to say I'm more prepared for it than you think I am, Todd.
Oh, is that right?
Will I? Am I prepared enough? I don't think so.
Caitlin's my oldest. What do you call it? Child, I guess. And I don't know why that suddenly got it.
Child?
Yeah, my oldest
Offspring?
child. And I used to go get her every other weekend for a visitation, parenting plan, all this visitation rights. And I went one weekend to pick her up with my buddy Jeremy, and she got in the car and was like a completely different person than I'd ever seen her. And he was like, "What is going on in the back seat?" We held a complete conversation about how Caitlin was acting in the back seat while she was in the back seat, talking about how she has 10,000 friends and she texts 100,000 times a day. And I was just like, and Jeremy looked at me, is like, "What is happening?" And I was like, I don't know. This is just what I get when I pick her up. So the joys of parenting are, you think you could be as prepared as you might, but you never know what's going to happen. So yeah, that's been interesting for a while.
Yeah, I think that I did a pretty good job answering this question in the first couple of minutes of my conversation with Rory a couple episodes ago.
Cool. I'll listen to it.
I will say one thing that I'm super grateful for is I feel that my wife and I are on a very similar mindset with what we think is the best way to go about raising her. There's a little nuanced differences, but we're pretty locked in together.
At least same direction. That's for
yes.
Sure. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And the second question, it's kind of a cliche question, but I was asked it one time, and I was surprised at the way I answered it and the way that the podcast host kind of picked it back and rewound it for me. So I was going to ask you the same question. If you could go back in your life, would you change anything, and what would it be if you would? If not, then that's fine too.
It's a great question. There's one specific incident where I'm really not happy with the way that I acted. I was in 7th grade, and one of my friends had a plan to do something really, really mean to an innocent kid in our class that didn't deserve to be treated the way this kid was going to be treated. And I thought what he wanted to do to this kid was so cool and so funny that I sat back and watched this kid get just lambasted, not physically, but emotionally. Now when I look back on it, I was like, man, I wish I would have had enough strength to stand up and just say to the kid, yo, like, let's not do this, or don't do that. That's not going to happen in my presence. So I think I like the saying, like, what you allow to occur in your presence is your standard. So you can say whatever you want, but what you allow to occur in your presence is your standard. And that showed that my standard was pretty friggin' low at that time. Yeah. There's lots of dumb things that I did in high school, middle school, but like when I think about that one, I was a coward. I was a coward.
Pivotal.
Yeah. And then another one is I spent 5 winters teaching snowboarding up here in Vermont. Mm-hmm. And I always had a dream of going out west and being a snowboard instructor at one of the resorts out west. Yeah. And I just, at that time in my life, you're old enough to do anything you want, young enough to do anything you want. I just never did that. I never went and spent a winter out west. And a couple of my friends did. I think a really good measure of should you do something, like Brian was saying, like when you look back in your life, do you wish that you did it, or are you upset that you did it? Yeah. And I really wish that in my 20s that I went and spent a winter out west. So that's a good reminder to me now, is just like, I'm going to take what I learned from that and say, yeah, this thing might cost money, this trip, this experience, this thing. But when I look back in my life, I'm sure that I want to have done that. So it kind of gives me,
How do you have the certainty for that? Like, I'm sure, just based on that one event that you didn't do, there's things that have popped up and you're like, I'm certain I want to do this.
Yeah, like I'm certain when I say that, it's more like there's places in the world that I want to visit before I die. Like I have a list on my fridge of places that I want to go and things I want to do.
So like
And
bucket
I'm
list.
certain,
Yeah.
I'm certain they want to do those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's what I mean. Is like I let that opportunity slip away. And yeah, I could go spend a winter out west, but in my 40s or 50s or 60s, it's a very different experience than being a ski bum in your 20s living out of the back of your truck.
Yeah.
And so so if I were to rewind, I would have taken at least one of those 4 winters or 5 winters and spent it out in Colorado or Utah or Wyoming and just snowboarded my brains out because that was what I was into at the time. Other than that, there's nothing else that I'd change.
Huh. Awesome. Great answer. Well, hopefully you don't have to rewind to 7th grade because that's a long ways back.
Yeah. I don't even want to get into the details.
That's all right,
of
though.
what
You
happened
learned
to
something
that.
about you, but you learned about it. So
Yeah.
that's all that matters. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
all I got.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Happy 10,000 downloads.
Here we
Mr.
are.
Ellis.
Yeah, right. Same to you. Yeah. 97.
Creeping up on 100.
I know it. Before you know it, it'll be 1 to 3 weeks. Let's go.
To our family listeners out there, we are just so grateful that you do take time to chime in with us, to listen to what we have to say, and hopefully you're taking stuff away that you can apply to your life or share with loved ones in your life to positively impact the people around you. But we do very much appreciate your ears. We thank you for your time. We are incredibly grateful for your attention. On behalf of Todd, myself, we are the School and Struggle Podcast. We are out.
See ya.